Welcome to the SoCal Classic Car Podcast, the exclusive place for coverage of car culture in Southern California and the personalities that drive it. I'm your co-host, Jay Marash. The show is associated with SoCal Classic Car Storage, which provides South OC car lovers the opportunity to secure their vehicles in an environment made just for them. Our two facilities feature advanced security systems, 24-hour video surveillance, and a dedicated members lounge. In addition to storage, our expert sales staff offers consignment services for those looking to sell their cars. For more information, visit us in Laguna Hills or our website, socalcarstorage.com.
Thanks a lot, Jay. And yes, he's right. This is the SoCal Classic Car Podcast. Welcome, everybody. And this is our fourth episode. And I am your host, Dean Morash. Jay says I'm his co-host, so I better stick with that. I'm proud to have as our guest today someone who hails from South Africa. Gilmer is an off-road customization expert who's had a wrench in his hand and been racing from a young age. His passion for Jeeps began when he moved to the United States and bought a CJ7 at 16. Wow. However, the United States was not quite wild enough for his love of overlanding, so he moved to Australia at 22. Since then, Gilmer has conquered the outback, completing many 3-week and 6-week off-road journeys. All that experience led him to create his own business, making and importing off-road accessories to prepare vehicles for the rough conditions of the deserts and freeways of SoCal and beyond. Now he's back in the States, building incredibly beautiful, enduring off-road machines at his Laguna Hills shop, Rebel Off-Road. The brand has virtually exploded around the world since 2010, amassing more than 500,000 followers on Facebook and 150,000 on Instagram. I don't know what that means, Bon, but it sounds great. Welcome to the show.
Well, why? Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you. Bon, why don't you start by telling us a little more about your business, Rebel Off-Road, with some insight into the inspiration behind it. Was it your years in the bush down under and around off-road vehicles that helped you develop a passion so strong you wanted to create a business out of it?
No, that really wasn't it. It's just I've always, growing up in Africa, and I'm Irish, but growing up in Africa and living in Australia, moved here, then moved to Australia. But long story short is when you're in remote places, it's necessary for you to figure out how to work on the machinery that's around you.
Right.
And in doing so, I used to race motocross and BMX and such, and in doing so, you develop a bit of a passion for the things you're doing. For me, it came to off-road vehicles, and as soon as I came here to the States, the very first vehicle I got was a Jeep. So it's kind of taken off along the Jeep side of things. People have asked me about, did I get much into... When I was in Australia, for instance, in Africa, they don't have Jeeps, so
right.
They mostly got Toyotas and Nissans, etc., and Mitsubishis. And yes, I was into those. I didn't own any of them myself, but I was into modifying them. So anything that was going to work to be able to go out and travel was the important piece to me, and it kind of became a second nature to me. If you're crossing, put it this way, if you were looking at Australia,
yeah,
picture going from, it's the same size as the United States approximately. It's got 23 million people. When I was there, it had 17 million people. So not a lot of people live there.
Wow.
And it's the same size as the U.S. We got 25 million people living in the greater L.A. area.
Right.
And if you were to take a vehicle and let's say, hey, and your family and want to travel, let's say from Los Angeles to perhaps Chicago, picture doing that without actually having any cities in between, or basically having a few tiny little towns with maybe 20 or 30 or 200 people in one of them perhaps. And that's the distance that you have to cross.
So you got to know how to fix your own crap, or else you're not getting there.
Exactly, and same thing kind of in growing up in South Africa. Well, it's not nearly the same size. Africa's a big continent, but South Africa's not that big. But you have all this space in between towns, and
right.
When things go wrong, when shit hits the fan,
right.
And you don't want to be stuck out overnight, especially in places like Africa with some of the animals that are there. So you don't want to become meals on wheels, as they say.
Right. I wouldn't be afraid of a wallaby, but I think I would be afraid of a lion, Jay. I think that scares me.
Do you know what a wallaby is?
No, but I've heard of them. Hey, we're also curious about this notion of a passion, because Jay and I have had this conversation of why people take the risk of being an entrepreneur. And for me, in my business, it had a lot to do with I'm really passionate about cars. It's been in my life since I was a little boy. And my dad was super passionate about cars, so he passed that on to me. Do you think that that has something to do with why you started this business, or does it have a lot to do with why you started it?
No, it's got a lot to do with why I started the business. When you have a passion for something, people sometimes say, hey, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Well, that's a bunch of horseshit. If you love what you do, right, you work your ass off about the things that you love.
Right.
And in my case, I love the off-road aspect of it. Growing up in Africa and also living in Australia and such, everything is you're outside all the time. So being outside and being in the dirt, which is also why I race motocross and BMX, is that all ties into your passion for the outdoors. Right. And the best way to see the outdoors, to see a lot of it, is through some type of a mode of transportation. Hiking's great, done a lot of that too, but you can only see so much of it, right, in a day. In our busy lifestyles these days, we want to be able to go places. We want to also be able to take the family with us. So the passion it's a fire that's inside of me.
Wow. Well, that answers the passion question, Jason, I think. You and I have had that conversation many a time, right?
What, about working hard?
No, just more about driving.
If anything, you work hard. Well, you work more hours doing the things that you're passionate about.
But
so
it does.
I tend to agree with Bond.
But does it feel like work?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not always.
It still does always.
But not
feel
always.
like
not
work.
always. So even though it feels like work, but you don't mind putting in the extra work.
Great
so it's still work, but you're and you want to be, with anything you do in your life, no matter whether you're working for somebody else or you're working for yourself, you have to have some passion there, right, in order to be successful. And one of the other things you've always got to do is, you have to give more than you receive.
Right.
As a business owner, we've got our clientele and our customers, and we give a lot to our customers. And we take them on off-road trips. We show them how to utilize their vehicles, how to use them, how their new accessories that they've installed are going to work. And we don't just do that here in the showroom or in the shop. We actually take them out and use them with the customers. We go all over the country, Moab and Florida, etc., and Kentucky, Tennessee, you name it, a lot of the states, and we go to them. So, but you've got to give. Right. And what we're in is a service industry. You guys are in a service industry, and quite frankly, every industry is a service industry. So, if you're an employee, if you're getting paid 10, give 11. Always give more.
Right.
If you're a business owner, you've got to give more back to your employees. You've got to give them back to your clientele.
It's a great point. It's one of the things that we try to strive for, is to exceed expectations in our business. Like, we want our customers to be blown away with the extra mile that we go, arranging for servicing of their vehicle, arranging for a paint shop to come picking up and fix a dent or a chip.
Now, how do they
car
get
washes.
that dent or chip?
Pardon?
So now, how do they get that dent or chip?
Well, it's not from us. I can assure you of that.
No, I've seen your facilities. They're very, very, very nice.
You.
And yes, I actually utilize your facilities, so I'm very happy with them.
Thank you. So, a little confusion here, Bond. Are you Irish, Australian, South African, all of the above, or does it depend on the bar that you're hanging out at?
Well, that has a lot to do with it too. Being Irish, we are we're known for being drinkers, and but not angry drinkers, just fun drinkers.
Fun drinkers.
But really, realistically, what it boils down to is I wouldn't say I'm anyone in particular. I'm all of the above and more. And here's how it works. We're all on this one planet together.
Right.
So these little lines that are drawn up by whoever draws up these lines, is somewhat of a bit of a bunch of nonsense that we have to watch. And I'm going to quote good old Crocodile Dundee here. You guys know who he is, yeah?
Yeah, we've seen him on TV.
Yeah, that's good old Mick Dundee, and he said, it's like two fleas fighting over who owns the dog they live on. Yeah. The Earth's going to be here. It was here before we came. It's going to be here after we're gone. So, for us to say this is mine and this is, the rest of it is, we've got to watch what we do there. So I'm from planet Earth. I don't really have any desire to go visit.
You don't have an identity per se. So what about your accent? I'm assuming that's from South Africa. Is that correct?
No, it's probably,
or is that more Australian?
It's probably more Australian.
Yeah.
I grew up in South Africa and lived in England and Ireland and lived a lot of different places. But my accent is probably, it's a bit of a mix, and it's probably a little bit more Aussie.
Aussie. Okay, cool. So I am intrigued about a lot of parts of your business, but the one that really fascinates me is one that I haven't had a chance to participate in, and that is the events that you go to, these places like Glamis and Calico and Ocotillo Wells. It appears that like these cities pop up overnight at the right time of year, and all these Jeeps and off-road vehicles invade the place, including suppliers like yourself, and you guys are there, like you said, to help your clients learn how to use the gear. But what drives all that? It seems from a distance to be some insanity. Can you give some insight into that for us?
Well, I can try. I mean, the way it works is like when these cities pop up, in the deserts, especially out here in Southern California area, but it also happens all across the country. But basically, here's how it works. When you're getting ready for some of these events, if it is a big event that's going on, people flock out to the deserts to go enjoy themselves. I mean, it's public land, which is great. And here on the West Coast, we've got a lot of public land available to us. So when people are going out there in droves, it's good fun to go out there, and everybody's hanging out, got a nice bonfire going. It's usually winter months because the desert's a little too hot during the summer.
Right.
And it's just this attraction of around either a particular vehicle or a particular race, or just at a particular event, and people are out there. We also do the opposite. Sometimes we go where nobody is. Right. So some of these cities that you see pop up, you look at King of the Hammers, for instance.
Right.
I mean, it's a zoo out there. It's a great zoo, though.
That was my next question. That's like taking it to the next level or two, right? That's insanity compared to some of these smaller desert events, right?
Like King of the Hammers, it's a fantastic event. I love it. I've raced it a couple of times.
Oh yeah.
Yep. But in addition to the racing portion of it, is just going out there for the camaraderie that happens. People flock out to the desert, and as I said, have these huge big gatherings. We have a huge gathering ourselves, and we throw a big party for our customers out there. And people like to get outside. They bring the families. The other thing is to keep in mind is a lot of these are family events.
Right.
So you bring families, kids, wives, and they're having a good time. It's a way for them to escape. These vehicles, the design behind them is really the notion behind them is so that you can escape. You can escape the mundaneness of the 9-to-5 job or the weekend comes
working
around.
for you or I, for example. Is that what you're talking about?
Something along those lines.
Hey Jay, have you been invited to any of these desert events? I've never.
No, I'm not cool enough for that.
You got to be. Oh.
It's not a question about being cool.
What
We
about-
just got to get you the right vehicle.
I do have a Ford Bronco. I just haven't modded it out yet or brought it over to Rebel Off-Road.
Yeah, you got to get to Rebel.
What year is this Bronco of yours?
1990.
90 and 90.
Yeah.
As we were sitting here, I was getting a text from a friend of mine who has a big demolition company in Texas. He's just found one out here. It's a 1996 Bronco. And he says, hey, could I possibly go and pick it up? Where the hell's Upland? I'm like, well, Upland's about an hour away. So literally that was 5 minutes ago.
That's cool. Have you guys done Broncos over there?
We've done some Broncos. The majority of what we specialize in is the newer Jeep vehicle. People are flocking towards those for a whole bunch of different reasons. How they drive, how they behave. You got space in them now.
Sure.
That kind of stuff.
A lot better technology than a.
Yeah, there's a lot of
90
technology
Ford
built
Bronco.
in. A lot of technology built into them. I mean, you can get them with lockers and load transfer cases, etc. Straight from
Right.
the dealers.
Yeah.
Well, what is King of the Hammers like for those who haven't been there?
So
Seems like a really
picture
fun time.
picture Burning Man probably times 10. For those of you who haven't been to Burning Man, Google it, I guess.
Yeah.
Watch what you might see there.
Burning Man. So there's more lawlessness out there?
No, it's not
Is
not
that
the
a
lawlessness.
modern day commune, Burning Man? Is that really what that is?
I couldn't tell you. I've actually never gone. I
haven't either.
Got a lot of customers that have gone, but I haven't gone. But King of the Hammers, because the race is on, and the race is over. There's multiple races that King of the Hammers has. There's King of the Motos for the motorcycles. There's what's called the Everyman Challenge. The Ultra 4 class, of course. That's the big boys and the fully modified anything you want vehicles. And they race them on different days. And as well as that, there's qualifying. Last year they brought out some trophy trucks to run the trophy trucks in a slightly different class, if you will. So each day there's different activities. In the nighttime, there's a real tough. The trails out there, I'll warn you, come with some strange names. Right, one of the toughest obstacles out there that they hold an event at is called the Backdoor Challenge. And so it's actually the obstacle is called Backdoor. So it's to try and climb up Backdoor, and basically you get people coming from all different that are competing. In the Backdoor Challenge, might come out from you get the rock bouncers from the East Coast coming out to see what that's going to be like. They get invited out, and then you got the Ultra 4 guys. These rock bouncers are on 54-inch tires.
Are these people from around the country, or are they actually coming from around the world? What's the reach?
So, King of the Hammers itself
Yeah.
is really from around the world. You get people from all different countries coming down to race it. Yeah.
Wow. Sounds like something Hunter S. Thompson would write about. What exactly is that Backdoor challenge? So can you describe that?
So the Backdoor challenge is there's an obstacle called Backdoor. Now the trails out there have got all sorts of different names. One of them's called Chocolate Thunder. Don't ask me how these guys came up with the names on these obstacles.
Yeah, right.
Another one that's way on the back side of the mountain is called Spooners. And the way the Spooners got its name was it gets cold out there, and it's a tough trail. Yeah. And two people, one of the vehicles broke down out there, and the two guys had to, in order not to freeze to
survive
death,
the night.
They got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Have you raced it yourself, a King of the Hammers?
Yes, I've raced King of the Hammers twice. A friend of mine's got the race car, so I'm navigating for him in the race. And basically, it's like being in a 12-hour plane crash.
Wow.
It is spectacular.
How's your bladder and your kidneys at the end of all that?
Well, funny you should ask, because you actually wear a catheter.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is that a true story?
Yeah, it's a true story, right? But it's not the hurtful catheter; it's the easygoing one. So I mean, you gotta be able to go to the bathroom. So and you can't stop racing to go pee in the bush.
So what does it take to win that thing?
So give you, I've never won it, so I'll tell you what I think might take to win it. A lot of luck, a lot of perseverance. Picture this, there's about 140 vehicles that start, and maybe around anywhere from 12 to 20 that might finish.
Wow.
So there's a lot of luck inside of there. As well as that, you've got to have a very well prepped rig. The fascinating thing is the race is, it's 3 different laps over rocky terrain, rock crawlings built into it, and some open desert as well. So the hard piece is to try and figure out how to build a vehicle that can do well in high-speed desert, as well as do well on the rocks. And I mean rock crawling at high speed.
Trade-off.
So when you go to the race, it's spectacular to watch, because when you go and look at the lineup or contingency, you see all these different vehicles. There's not one of them that looks the same as the other. Every other form of motorsport, all the vehicles all look the same. Yep. You look at NASCAR, Formula One. Yep. You choose it. It makes no difference. They all look the same. You go out to King of the Hammers. Every vehicle is totally different, because everyone's got a different idea of what might work that year to get over those obstacles. Wow. and try and do well.
Fascinating. I want to take a little different direction now. One of the things that I'm really intrigued about your business is the design work of some of the specialized equipment. It's good that we talked about these races like King of the Hammer and going out Ocotillo Wells and stuff, because it seems to me that there's extreme requirements, whether it's articulation, how much range you got to have on a front end, or durability. You mentioned that, like to survive a race. So what is it that goes into designing this gear and then producing it and making it work? I mean, give me an idea of what that's like for you guys as a business.
So for us, what we're looking at when putting a vehicle together is, obviously you got to work with the constraints of the consumer as well as the constraints of their budgets. And what we look and tell a customer is, listen, let's look at how you think you're going to be using the vehicle 2 years from now. Right? Not what you're going to use it for right now, but 2 years from now, because this is a sport where you grow into it. You start getting used to it. You're rock crawling, and now you conquered something, and now you want to conquer some bigger obstacles. So what you look at is, okay, 2 years from now, how does this vehicle supposed to be functioning? And what you try and do is minimize. It's very hard to eliminate, but minimize the amount of double spending.
Yeah, swapping out parts for better parts.
Yes. So you want to minimize that now. Unless you know exactly what you want right from the get-go, and you come down to the shop and you see a lot of our heavily built rigs, you're going, I want that exact build, or something like that. That's okay. So then it's a one-time build. But for the most part, people are growing into this, and it's families growing into it. So it's not a macho thing. There's the other thing with jeeping and going off-road. It's not a macho thing. It's about everybody's out there to help each other get through something and have a lot of fun doing it. So when it comes to designing something, the main thing has to be, there's a whole bunch of different points. One of them is going to be, and it's a strong point, is to make sure that the vehicle is not only going to be safe, but really so that you can get the family back home.
Right, in one piece.
In one piece.
Not airlifted.
No, and the other piece is like when you're out and you break down on the trail, when you're 18 years old, and you break down on the trail, and hey, you're going to spend the night there, and
you can rough it.
Yeah, you can rough it, But as you get a little older, and you have a family and your wife and kids, you don't want to be broken down on the trail, have to rough it all night long with with young kids or your wife that's upset with you now, etc. So you want to put on the components that are going to work, that are going to be strong enough to.
Can't you put a 4-star tent in the back?
Well, we do that too. I've seen put them on the roof. Put them on. Yeah, the rooftop tents are fantastic.
So is it growing then? Is the hobby here in Southern California growing?
So I think going, not just here in Southern California, but I think the world over, the fact that these vehicles are now very capable, and the odds of getting people back home, when I say back home, back out of their adventure,
back to civilization.
Civilization, yeah, is pretty high. So people are taking more risks and doing bigger things with them and going on bigger trips with them.
Yeah. So I did see evidence of people actually coming back alive in your driveway of your business one day. Remember that white Jeep? I guess white. I don't know what to call it. But the guy flipped it. Remember, he was going over that feature.
Yeah, we have quite a few.
But he had his wife and his daughter in the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And it came back, and honestly, there were a few bent pieces, but the roll cage and everything did exactly what it's designed to do. And I thought to myself, there is no way I'd subject my family to that. But that's kind of what this is all about. It's part of the adventure. But if you're feeling, if you and the rest of the people that are supporting the industry are getting to a point where you've got confidence, like modern day cars and race cars surviving these horrific things, then safety is much more achievable, right?
It is, and of course,
happens.
The way these vehicles are built, and especially when you put roll cages inside them, they make them very safe. And the key thing is, of course, wear your seatbelt. That's the number one thing, is you got to be wearing your seatbelt, because even when rock rolling, you might roll slow, it's still a roll. We might flip it on its side, it's still a flip. You got to keep your hands and legs and extremities inside the vehicle at all times, as I say on the ride.
At Disneyland, it's kind of like a Disneyland adventure.
Permanecer sentados, por favor.
That was good, Jim.
Yeah. Sorry, no hablo español.
So one place you haven't been, right?
But one aspect of your business that we haven't touched on really is that you guys do design and have fabricated some of your own designs, right?
Yeah, correct. We've got.
You've got test mules. You've got some fantastic, way over the top Jeeps and other vehicles that you've really just used as test mules to continue to, stay on the cutting or bleeding edge of this, this whole industry.
We try not to bleed too much, but
right.
But when it comes to we're very well known for our coilover kits. It gives you heaps of wheel travel, etc. We have to design these cars so that they drive nicely on the street and work incredibly well off-road. And that's where the magic comes in, having a vehicle that can do both. You're not building just an off-road buggy, and you're not building something as strictly for the street. Our customers utilize their vehicles, so you're not building what we call mole crawlers, which are just driving around looking cool.
Looking good.
Yeah, looking good. We want to look good, but with these things, got to function. And most of our customers
do people get penalized for not using their vehicles if they look too clean and you can see that it's never been out in the sand or climbing rocks? Is there a penalty for that?
Yeah, there is. And it's usually the social media penalty.
You get shaved on social media, do you?
Well, we don't, but people do. We get to see it all the time, and people. There's a whole bunch of different reasons why you want to build a cool vehicle. Sometimes it's just the internal piece that you want to have a lovely piece of equipment, and it turns into a piece of artwork, by the way.
Well, they are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm blown away at how beautiful that one that you just recently built that you have parked in front of your shop is. That's a Rubicon?
No, that's so. I got a few of them out there.
Right. Which one are you talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. But for us, it's got to be it's got to function as well.
Okay.
And not only has it got to function, as I said, most of our customers do take these things off-road. And I absolutely love when our customers will say to us, hey, I know you built this thing for me and it's built like a tank, and we like to build them like a tank because that gets the family homes. We put on, we put on big axles, strong suspension, strong components, stuff that's going to work, lockers, bead locks, etc. And we want to be able to get the family home. But what I get the biggest kick out of internally for me is when I have a customer that hasn't done some crazy obstacle, and they look at that and they go, Bond, can you get me over that? And I'm like, well, let me see if I can get over it first. And I might struggle sometimes to get over some of these things, or it came real close to something going terribly south. And I'll say, hey guys, here's what happened with me. What do you guys want to do? And when they look me in the eye and they say, Bond, I don't give a shit. It's a piece of metal. I want to make it up that. I got my family here. I want us to be able to go that. Get me over that. and they get over it, and sometimes there's some scrapes and scratches. But that's part of playing. That's part of the course for playing off-road.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We're in a business where a scrape, a scratch, a ding, or a nick can be the end of the world because our customers are so obsessive compulsive about the condition of their vehicle. So when I see $100,000 or $200,000 rigs getting scraped up or bumping into a rock or it's just it's kind of devastating from my view, but you're saying it's all part of the fun, right?
It is all part of the fun. It's like a scar. A scar is kind of like a tattoo, but with a better story. When you get these scrapes and scratches and you've taken your vehicle off-road, there's some fantastic stories behind there, and usually some great photographs too.
Right.
And it's
like a badge of courage.
Yeah, I was going to say bragging rights, but that's actually wrong. Badge of courage is better because they aren't bragging about it. They want to share. They want to say, man, look what the hell I just did. This is incredible. I got this vehicle that that Rebel built and it works. And look at this thing. Look what it did.
Yeah.
I got some scrapes and scratches, but you look at these off-roads and think, how on earth can a vehicle drive on these and then drive you home?
Right.
Well, it seems like in your industry and your business requires a lot of ingenuity. Have you, some of the products that you sell are things that you've invented yourself? And if so, how many inventions have you made?
Well, when we talk about inventions, and like for us, we do a coilover kit, and we do other components too. But when it comes to suspension working, a coilover, it works so well that it gives you so much more droop, so much more wheel travel. And when we're developing these things, we want to make sure, as I said, that vehicles are going to work fantastically well off-road, but also be capable of being driven on the street very safely. So because you're going to have a family inside them. Ordinarily, these are going to be family-driven vehicles as well. So when you look at the different components and how you're building them, you have to take into effect all of these different factors.
Yeah.
You're not building strictly an off-road buggy.
Right. Yeah.
So you're building something that you need the family to be safe inside, but everything else has still got to work. They still want to push the cruise control button and have the thing drive down the road, and it's got to drive straight, etc. So the components when we're designing components, we have to take into effect a lot of these different factors. It's
right.
not just a question of go out and lay some stick and weld some stuff together.
So let's talk a little bit about the Jeep Gladiator. That seems to be all the rage. Did I say it right? It's basically a four-door Jeep truck, right?
That's exactly what it is.
And I think you were out at SEMA showcasing some products that you jointly developed or were involved in at SEMA, right? So let's talk a little bit about those products as well as this phenomena called the Gladiator, for lack of a better definition.
So we've got suspension. We have long arm suspension. We control arms. We've got short arms. They're adjustable. We've got the coilover kits. In addition to that, we have bumpers that we're just about ready to release our bumper line right now. It'll be front and rear bumpers with different stingers, different skid plates on them.
So how did you get all these products already for a vehicle that's only been out for a year or less? Did you get some advanced
we got a little bit of touchy-feely time ahead of time, and I think that has to, FCA, which is Fiat Chrysler America, came down to pay us a visit. And,
did they really?
They did. Yep.
Oh, cool.
And it was a little bit ahead of time. And when I asked them, I said, why did you choose us? Where else were they going?
Right.
And I said, nowhere else.
What an honor.
Yeah, it was. And so I said, well, why did you choose us? And I said, well, we've seen what you guys do. We've seen the caliber of the work that you guys do. We've also seen the presence that you guys have at events.
Wow.
And also obviously on the social media side. And you have this huge following, and when you look at Yelp reviews, etc., we're through the roof, and they were jazzed about it. So they brought us down this vehicle to, they let us put it up on the rack and said you can't take any photographs, but you guys can put it on the rack and kind of tear it apart, just put it all back together, and you can't take any photos if it doesn't have a Chrysler part in there. We were trying on, 37-inch tires and all sorts of stuff ahead of time, so it was good.
What an honor.
It really was. And so when getting ready for SEMA, that's getting some of these products. With the Gladiator, it's a Jeep pickup truck, and what's nice about it is it's got some space, and you've got this solid axle in the front. You've got coil springs and shocks in the front as well as in the rear, so it gives you heaps of articulation. A lot of the other cars are independent. A lot of their trucks, SUVs are IFS, or independent front suspensions, so you get limited travel out of them. To fit a tire onto some of the other vehicles like a Toyota, if you're trying to squeeze a big tire on there, to fit a 33-inch tall tire onto a Toyota, you got to do some work. It's got to get at least a few inches of lift on it. To fit a 35 on a Gladiator, you just bolt it on.
Wow.
To fit a 37 on there is a 2-inch lift, and it's an easy lift. To fit 40s, you go bigger. But
So
it's
is it
just
safe to say that, these companies like Jeep, like Chrysler or FCA are learning from companies like yours and your customers to develop their products to be better capable of modifying for off-road? I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is they put that solid front axle on there for a reason, right?
Yeah, there was talk about possibly when this vehicle was going to be released, it was going to have an independent front, and I think the true believers when it comes to a solid front axle, it's kind of hard to beat. When you look at a vehicle that you can drive on the street as well as off-road, an off-road vehicle that's got long travel like a trophy truck or something, that's different. You're not driving that thing on the street.
Right.
But if you compare it like the current vehicles that are out there, the Fords, the Chevys,
right.
the Toyotas, etc., Jeep's got the solid axle. And that's such an important piece when it comes to modifying the vehicle. So I think what happened with good old with Chrysler, FCA, the Jeep is the most highly modified vehicle on the planet.
Right.
And the Jeep Wrangler especially, and the Gladiator is a Wrangler front with a truck bed on the back. So it's a little longer, 136-inch wheelbase. But the long and the short of it is it's a Jeep. So they have come out with a whole bunch of different off-road accessories themselves.
Of course.
Lift kits. They've got you name it. They've come out with half doors, tubular doors, all of these types of cool things, roof racks, etc. That you can bumpers, not the winches, but the winch plates. That you can buy factory ones from the dealer. Yeah. Now the aftermarket is of course a little bit ahead of the game when it comes to more hardcore components.
Right. Yeah.
Because they're not trying to mass produce, and they're producing for a bit of a niche market.
Yeah. And your customers are really a niche market, like ours, right?
Yep.
I mean, is that how you look at your market? It's pretty niche?
It is very niche. And doing the right thing is always going to be paramount because you are in such a niche market.
Right. Hey, I want to talk a little bit about your brand. The reason why I bring this up, I put a lot of thought into building our brand before we launched the business of SoCal Classic Car Storage. And I know what goes into the effort that it takes to promote it, protect it, kind of revise it as you grow. So I have a lot of just a passion for that part of the business because I'm an ex-marketing guy. So I look at Rebel Off-Road and I see a really strong brand. You somehow have made it cool for customers to put your brand on their vehicles. So to me, that's really part of your secret sauce from the outside looking in, because I'm as ignorant as they come when it comes to off-roading. But that's brilliant. Your brand is so cool that people want it on their vehicle when they're done modifying it with your stuff. So tell me was there some genius there, or is that...
Well, I wouldn't say there's any genius there, but going back to one of the questions you asked in the beginning when it comes to being enthusiastic about what you do,
right?
That bleeds over. So it bleeds over not only from me, but all my staff. All of my staff are enthusiasts. They're off-road enthusiasts. Right. So that when we get somebody coming in and we build a vehicle, I might have you see my facility. I might have 20 to 32 vehicles there in a day,
right.
But every single one of those is unique, and every single one of the owners of those vehicles are unique. And we get excited no matter how big the build is or how small the build is, because this is somebody that's going to be enjoying what we do.
Right.
And when you're enthusiastic about something, that has a massive draw. So I wouldn't say that it's some marketing genius, because it really isn't. From the outside it might appear that way. From the reality and the inside of it is, it's just us being enthusiasts, loving what we do, and helping the customer understand that they can love this too, and helping each customer understand it's not a question of seeing one that's built to the hilt and going, I could never get that.
Right.
It's not a question about never get that. It's like, start using the vehicle off-road and you will start to love going off-road, and when you start to love going off-road, we know they're going to keep coming back to start doing more things. So each build is just so enthusiastic.
Sorry, is it safe to say that some of your customers feel like they've joined the family of this Rebel off-road community?
I think it's more than safe to say that some of them, I think the majority of them feel that way. We've even got some of them have gone out there and get Rebel Off-Road tattoos, and I'm thinking, whoa.
Jay, do you have one of those yet? He's lucky. No?
When did I go out drinking last?
Oh, but it's not on the back. You know what I mean? But
Rebel Off-Road tramp stamp.
Well, let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
And if you have one of those, I don't want to see it.
Yeah, not today.
Come on,
anyway.
I want to be on.
Maybe
the
if we go to
Instagram
one of the
page.
Irish bars that he frequents, we could talk him into seeing some of this.
I don't know if that's Irish bar.
Well,
It might be a South African bar. But
It doesn't really matter how it's evolved, but it is a very strong brand, whether it's a conscious effort on your part or, like you said, more out of the passion for sharing and caring about your customers and their experience.
The majority of it is strictly out of the passion. We have to guide it sometimes,
Right.
but it's 99% out of the passion and the enthusiastic staff that we have and the enthusiasm that we put forth with every single customer's build. Or even if they're buying parts from us. I mean, here's, people that say to us, hey, what sets you guys apart? And it's pretty basic, I think. From our standpoint is, let's say we get an online order. It's not just a question of processing the order.
Right.
We've got 40,000 products online, but it's not a question of processing the order off the product goes. We'll pick up the phone and ask the customer, hey, so tell us about your vehicle. They're going to start having a conversation with us about it, and we might say, hey, you bought that part, but that part, there's a better part than that. It might cost more, it might cost less. It has nothing to do with the cost. Has everything to do with the component that's going to work based on all the other components that the customer has. So one of the things that sets us apart is we're going to contact the customer and say, hey, we want it to be right. Because quite frankly, selling them something, or if they bought something and we ship it to them and it's not going to work for them because shipping coming back, it's a headache, boxing, blah, 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 back to the manufacturer. It's way better from our standpoint to actually, this is the 1% piece, is you pick up the phone, you have a chat with the customer. That saves all the headaches. But most importantly, what it's going to do for the customer is it makes the customer feel like you actually care. And the best part is we actually do. We want to get to know these customers. I mean, when I get customers say to us, hey, how much more money do I have to spend before I can get a Rebel Off-Road decal on my car? And when it's kind of a funny thing for somebody to say to me, but it's so true. And here's the way I work. When I've got customers that are out there, if my guys are busy, I'm out speaking to the customers, and the customers will ask me, I'll walk them around and show them different things, and they'll say, how much is this, how much is that? I actually don't know the prices, and I tell them, I have no idea how much it costs. I said, I know the products that you need for what you've just described you want to do, so we'll build it that way. We'll go inside and figure out what the costs are, and see if we have to break it down or what we got to do. But most importantly, it's got nothing to do with cost when I'm talking to you, because I have no idea how much almost any of this stuff costs.
Well, the good news is I was able to get a sticker just by asking, Jay. So I think either I've got a lot of pull, or I didn't think to ask about how much it costs.
Well, you did get a new Jeep.
I do have a new Jeep. So
is that a Jeep?
Ouch. You know what? I showed them my Jeep proudly, my Cherokee, and I asked them if they thought there was any hope, and they said, we're sorry, we've got a customer, but if you come back a little later on.
Well, we gave you a sticker because that'll give you an extra 5 horsepower.
So, hey, one of the things I'm curious about, Jason and I were talking about this a little bit before we did the podcast, is how well would your business do in this South Africa or Australia or some of these remote countries where you kind of develop this passion and grew up brake fixing and trying them all? Is it too spread out? Is there an area where it might work? Have you put any thought into this? I'm just
lots of thought. In fact, when I lived in Australia, I used to import Jeep accessories into Australia and sell them. Mm-hmm. And my first company was that I founded was in Australia. It's called Overland Equipment, and because that's what we do over there, a lot of overlanding. I mean, this is going back. I'm dating myself here a little bit, but this is like the late '90s. So I've been in this arena for a long time and love what I do. But in looking at it, so how well can things work overseas? There are limitations with overseas. Out here in America, we have the ability to take a vehicle and modify it and drive it on the street. In other countries, France is very tough. Now, we do business in lots of different countries too. So we sell products to different off-road shops and have some distributors in different countries. But the way it boils down to is, if you're looking at, let's say Australia, if you're going to have a vehicle that's got more than 2 inches of lift, the max you can put on the vehicle without having to get an engineer's report done on the vehicle is 2 inches of lift.
So Jason was asking this exact question when we were talking the other day. Are all these changes, modifications that are being made on these Jeeps and in these other platforms street legal? And in the United States, I said I think the answer is yes, as long as they can be smogged and the basics, right?
Yeah, the rules out here are pretty open. I I mean, technically, you're not supposed to have a tire sticking in California. You're not supposed to have a tire sticking out past your fender well unless you have a mud flap on it. You know, and we don't have much mud out here. Now you go down to Florida, no mud flaps required, nothing required. You can have no fenders, no mud flaps, and that's perfectly legal.
Yeah, and there's plenty of mud down there.
And there's mud everywhere down
Snakes too; those are scary.
Alligators. Alligators.
Yeah. Well, is the hobby of overlanding a lot bigger in South Africa, Australia?
So over there, it's not. They don't call it overlanding. You're just going traveling. In order to travel, you've got to go overland, right?
Right. Yeah, because how many times have you crossed the Australian continent, off-roading?
Well, I've gone to the centre quite a few different times, and then I've gone up through. I used to live up in the Blue Mountains outside of Sydney. So going to the centre is pretty. It's a pretty long ways, and that's about there and back, and it's about almost 3 weeks worth of a trip. You also head up. I've gone on other trips where you head up to up to Cooktown, which is in the north. Unfortunately, I was trying to go the whole way up to the top, but the rains were coming, and when the rains come over there, you can't travel in the north. Yeah. So I mean, the floods are just humongous.
Well, I bet you have some interesting stories about all your continental travelings in Australia. Do you have like a crazy story that you could share with us, or something amazing that happened?
Tell them we're not PG-13.
During your trips, because I mean, you were probably doing that, at a time. A decade or two
more than
ago.
That.
Yeah. So the technology wasn't what it was.
You weren't
so
born yet, and he was doing it.
I bet you found yourself in some, hairy situations. I was just wondering if you could share with our audience, maybe a story about that.
Well, actually, I'll share with you a story that happened here in the U.S. Talking about.
Cool.
You can still get stuck, even you can still find the middle of nowhere, even out here. I was down near San Diego. This was back in the mid-90s, and had my Jeep and had my girlfriend at the time, and I was just dating her. I think I must have been early 90s actually. And I said to her parents, I said, hey, we're going to go camping, just going for an overnight run. And didn't come back for 6 days. And although it sounds like a good time, what happened is...
They called the cops.
Well, they went... This is, of course, before cell phones. I think it was like 91 this happened. And, we're off-roading, jeeping, and, broke the front axle, knuckle broke off. And we're out in the desert, and this is, I think this happened on a Monday night. And they were supposed to be back on the Tuesday. And long story short is we were stuck down there. Literally it was 6 days. We'd passed a ranch house that was about, we had to walk back to it. So it was about an hour's walk back, and each morning what we would do is, because I was working on the Jeep that was now stuck in a huge hole with the axle broken off, and I'm trying to fix it, and, not too many tools and ratchet straps and everything else, and high lift jacks, and long story short is we had to hike every day over to this farmhouse that was all boarded up. They did have some chickens, and I didn't want to eat the chickens because, they're not mine, but we did take the eggs. And every day I was living on, myself and the girlfriend at the time were living on just nothing but eggs.
Chicken eggs.
Chicken eggs, right? And I'll say wild chicken eggs.
Were you eating them raw, or was it hot enough to cook on the rock?
No, so we'd been camping, but by day 4, I'm exhausted. I mean, digging for days trying to get this thing out of the predicament that we were in. And by day 4, I was so exhausted. Day 5 and day 6, I just took the entire chicken egg and shell and all, stuck it in my mouth and was crunching down on it. And that's, I was we finally made it out of there. And that's only like, call it about 2 hours from where we are.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Well, it
sounds like that was pretty tough mentally there.
I think we're just fortunate to have you in our studio today, Bond. I mean, that could have been the end of you.
It could have been. It could have been the end of some chickens, too. It's getting close to that.
I'm surprised parents didn't kill you. I mean, you're here. You survived somehow.
So these things happen anywhere you go. It's just that that's one that obviously sticks out, and it's not an overseas story, but it's like the same thing can happen real close to home.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, so why don't you tell folks that are listening? We're going to go ahead and wrap it up, but tell folks where everybody can best contact Rebel Off-Road.
Well, we are down here in Southern California, 23501 Commerce Center Drive, and that's in Laguna Hills, California. Obviously, you can go to our website as well, which is www.rebeloffroad.com. On there, you can see, as I said, about 40,000 different products. The stuff that we manufacture, the bed racks, etc., the bumpers, suspension components and other stuff on there. But that'll be the best place to go see us. Or actually, if you're in Southern California, come on down and pay us a visit, because quite frankly, you haven't seen a showroom like ours, you haven't seen a facility like ours, and it doesn't matter where you go in the country. When we get people coming out here for SEMA and other shops, and they come down to see us, and they're in shock to see what our facility is like. It's very different. The caliber of the vehicles that are there are through the roof.
Awesome.
And everything for you to see.
Well, plus, if people can't come see you, your Facebook page is awesome. You've got a lot of great content on there, videos and pictures.
Yeah, here's the thing.
We
actually use
a lot
the
of your
vehicles.
Customers, right?
We get hit up all the time from different companies saying, we don't have enough content. I'm like, I'm oozing with content. I got more. We have so much content because we use the vehicles all the time. Right. It's just up in Big Bear it got nailed in that snowstorm, which is fantastic. The weekend before that, we went out to the Alabama hills, and then we went to Sequoia. So we're utilizing these vehicles all the time and having a great time with them. So our content is like it's busting out of our ears.
That's great. Well, it doesn't sound like work, Jay. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to disagree. I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much, Bond. Again, that was Bond Gilmer from Rebel Off-Road here in Laguna Hills. They're actually our neighbors, so it's pretty cool to have them on. Anything else you want to add? Anything we may have missed before we let you go?
No, I just want to say thank you to you guys for having me, and of course, thanks for everybody for listening. But do come on down and check us out. They can also check out your facility because you guys are right next door to me, and I utilize your facility. It's awesome.
Yeah, Bond's one of our best customers. That's for sure.
I noticed check out our backyard.
Does that mean I pay my bill?
No, it just means you take up a lot of space. So we like customers that take up a lot of space.
Well, that's all for us here at the SoCal Classic Car Podcast, the S3CP, as some of the young people like to call it. If you want to listen to more episodes of the podcast, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn Radio. All you have to do is just look up SoCal Classic Car Podcast, or you can go visit our website at socalcarstorage.com/media to look at the current episode and also previous episodes. Anyway, this is the SoCal Classic Car Podcast. Thank you so much for stopping by, and happy driving.